What's your word? What's your word?
You know, Steve, there used to be this saying in my family, like when I would go away for, the weekend or something like that, and you'd come home and I'd say to my mom, "Hey, mom, did you miss me?" And her response would always be the same: with every shot I take, but my aim is getting better. I don't know what kind of dynamic that says about the relationship between me and my mom, but I can tell you the dynamic about the relationship with me and one Mr. Steve Swift. It goes far and beyond anything that we talk about here. I am blessed to have him with us as always, as are you, you lucky listeners and viewers, mostly with cataracts, and so you don't see what we actually look like. But nonetheless, the man is a plethora of pugilistic knowledge, and some would say it's a comeback because we skipped last week. We had some issues. Nonetheless, Steve, I hear through the grapevine, not even from you, but I heard it. It made its way all the way across the telegram and everything. You got some venom up in you this week with when it comes to boxing. Apparently, you are an unhappy man.
I'm getting a bit sick and tired. Oh, by the way, I'm delighted to be here, mainly because it counts towards my parole. So, I mean, time served. This is time served, and because it's done with you, it counts triple. Anyway, yes, I'm a bit. Do you know what I'm cheesed off about? And I'm aware that I'm adding to this, but I'm cheesed off about that thing of people say things and everybody goes, "Oh, he said something." I'm just sick and tired, but then I'm aware that's product, and that's what I am doing. And in some ways, that's what we see. That's what I am doing on a very basic level, and it's what we are doing on a more enhanced level.
Well, yet again, I mean, we say things on this show, and then they show up in the news. It's crazy. So we're gonna do a little bit of that this week. I'm sure we will. Clip all of this stuff, get it out there, let people talk about it. We're going to talk about a few things though this week. Well, of course, we've got a big fight coming up. Heavyweights are going to get at it. Moses Itauma is going to go out there and against a road-worthy Dillian White. We're going to talk about that card and what this means to the heavyweight division. Also, another heavyweight in the news, of course, Anthony Joshua. We're going to talk a little bit about him. And does he have a fight coming up, or is it going to be another massacre? I'm going to talk about that one. And speaking of one thing that we have to talk about when it comes to the world of boxing this week, unfortunately, there has been more passings, more deaths in and around the world of boxing. And this one is a little bit more tighter, not a retired boxer. No. And it was a boxer on a card right afterwards. And if that wasn't enough, there was two of them on the same card. And we're going to talk a little bit about that stuff as well. The ramifications and what this means for boxing in general, and more importantly, the country that is having this. Now, before we get into everything though, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you so much for subscribing, listening, watching, sharing this with all of your friends. We appreciate it more than anything. You can always check out Steve's stuff over at World Weary Guy 1 for all of the reviews that he does outside of boxing, music, everything like that, movies. It's fantastic. Of course, you can check out all of the other stuff that we do here in the world of MMA, pro wrestling, all of this stuff on What's a Work Radio. But it's not really radio. It's more of a YouTube thing. But there's a podcast. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, if you're listening to this on Apple, Tune, Majiggies, or anything like that you young whippersnappers are doing nowadays at your hoot name, we appreciate the hell out of you. So let's get into this right away, Steve. We've got a card. We've got a card this weekend. And it's been kind of a little bit of a lackluster couple of weeks, with some of the fights. But we have a card coming up this weekend that is headlined by none other than Moses Itauma and one Dillian White. The records here, 12-0 for young 20-year-old Moses, which in itself, think about that for a second, Steve. He's 20 years old already with 12 professional fights. It's a busy kid. Taking on a warrior, a road warrior, if you will, in Dillian White, a man who's 31-3 with 21 of those fights coming by knockout. So this is not a walk in the park. How do you Are you excited about this fight? How do you see this whole thing going down?
Well, one thing that I have podcasted about on Steve Smith's Rambling Reviews, is that I got a notification from DAZN, which I think is where the pay-per-view is, telling me what time the sodding ring walks were. That was 2 weeks ago. Okay, right. Hold your horses. We have, usually you get that the day before. I suspect that they really want to try and sell this. We've had loads of stories about how Dillian Whyte beats Moses Itauma, how Moses Itauma could be taking a step too far. Now, you've got to sell it on that main event because the rest of the card, it's not a stinker, but I can smell something emanating from it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't. This is definitely not a strong card. I mean, but they do have a couple of other heavyweights on this card as well, and we know how these cards lay out. I mean, you're literally looking at they're trying to set up Moses and his next opponent. It makes sense. It completely makes sense for a young kid like this. But I think that in this day and age, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I feel like you are going to be the guy who says Moses is going to walk right through the old man. No?
Well, I love watching Moses. And the thing is that there was an online boxing article from a platform that shall remain nameless, who said, Moses Itauma, and I podcasted about this tonight, has said things to the similar to, I want to come out with no hurt and lots of money like Money Mayweather. And, it attacked his critics and said, you're just transplanting your upset anger, I'm paraphrasing, onto me. Now, the article then went on to say sort of words to the effect of, how dare he? He hasn't fought anybody. Well, that's boxing, folks.
Yep.
And that's what you do. So you carefully bring your charge up there. I mean, and if you do that well, as they have with Moses, then you get a few fights, media starts getting involved, TV starts saying, he's knocking people out, folks. And then you say, well, let's have a look at a gatekeeper. And that would be Dillian Whyte, who's a gatekeeper, who's another gatekeeper, whose time is kind of, I mean, as an exciting heavyweight is over, in my view. But the only way he's going to beat Moses is if he takes him into the deep water. He's going to need a pair of water wings and a massive rubber ring, because I suspect he'll need to use that jab. And he has turned up, it looks like, really ripped and fit. He's going to try and take him into the deep water, but he's going to need to use his jab to keep Itauma off. Itauma is a one-punch specialist. So if Dillian Whyte actually boxes him, that'll be interesting. I don't think Dillian Whyte can really do that.
Listen, everybody talks about taking Moses to deep water in this fight, but when really, outside of like fights with Derek Chisora, when has Dillian Whyte gone into deep waters? He went to try to go into deep waters against a blown up Tyson Fury, and that lasted to the 6th round, and he got dusted. You know what I mean? He's got a win and a loss against Povetkin. Outside of Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora, what are his biggest wins? Everybody talks deep water. These are heavyweights. These are heavyweights in a 12-round fight where weight is not a limit. There is no limit on this one. I'm telling you right now, Dillian Whyte will probably come in somewhere around, let's say, I don't know, what are we going to give him? We're going to give him a fighter's chance here and say 275, 280. That would be my guess, which is way too big for him. And Moses is going to come in, where he does, what, about 240-ish, something like that? 235, 240, right?
It's set up perfectly. Dillian Whyte, there's a big thing around, people have written me off. Yeah, well, there's a reason for that, Dillian. There's a reason they've written you off, mate. I mean, he talks about fighters from the past who may have shocked Lennox Lewis. That was a long time ago. So, I kind of think it's set up beautifully for Itauma to knock him out, to get him right out of there. And that'll be it for Dillian Whyte then. But there's always that worry, isn't there? And it is set up beautifully for Itauma, but look what happened with Ryan Garcia recently.
Mhm.
So, you set up those fights, and as you say, it's set up for him to fight the next. I really hope he comes through it.
I wonder, though, if there's a chance that Dillian White, because we have seen as well with Moses, I mean, he's got a very fast hand, but he's still very young. These are heavyweights, and he does have a tendency to leave that chin up there a little high when he's pulling back after that punch, because he's a heavyweight. He doesn't, and up to this point, he doesn't have to, because he's knocking everybody out, right? I just wonder if what the line is on all of this right now, what the if they've even got a line out for this fight already, because I can't imagine it's that far out of, they don't even have the lines up right now. There's no lines up on this fight right now. That's how crazy it is. And that's how much nobody cares. Nobody cares. And that's wild, because the heavyweight division needs something right now. We're literally talking about another story now where inside of the heavyweight division, the top guys in the division can't give fights. So we're looking at what? Anthony Joshua trying to do a fight with Jake Paul? This is where we're at, Steve, with this heavyweight division?
Yeah, the problem is that, and I believe that fight will happen. I believe it will happen. I believe it's confusing at the moment because you've got, it's a general confusion. And what's happened is that the heavyweight world has kind of stepped into the influencer boxing world. So while Jake Paul's saying, well, I want to go after Ramirez and get a title, or I might see if Manny will give me, give me a fight. He's also saying, well, actually, he's been quite quiet about AJ, but he's not saying I'm now legitimate and not doing any influencer boxing. In the meanwhile, you have Eddie Hearn muddying the water by saying Tony Yoka. Of course, Tony Yoka makes sense, says Tony Yoka. Well, it makes sense to you, mate, and also to AJ because he's no threat. So that would be a legitimate step back in fight. But you can't have the penny and the bun, to use a Scouse phrase. You can't say, well, I'm just going to go and step over this, because so what happened to Tyson Fury, it made him look foolish. I watched that fight again recently, and he didn't half look foolish. And it's taken some of the guilt off the gingerbread. And the same with Anthony Joshua. So to step back into that, it just muddies the water. So that is why we can't make these fights, because you've got the influencer thing coming in. So no one can say, well, okay, I'm going to set up a fight with Tony Yoka and AJ. Oh, but he might be fighting Jake Paul. Well, make your blooming mind up, because I've got a date. So that's a problem.
Well, I think that what Eddie Hearn is doing is he's gaslighting. He's gaslighting Jake and AJ into trying to take this fight. He's throwing things out there like, he knows that it does nothing for boxing, but he's saying that, like, generationally and monetarily, this is the biggest fight in the history of fight. Like, he's doing all of the right things that Eddie should be doing to try to make this fight happen, because, his couple of points off of this fight is going to be fantastic. Good for him. Here's the thing part, though, Steve. He's not wrong. He's not wrong about this, because this is a fight that people will tune into, just like they did with Mike Tyson. This is a fight that you can take to Netflix. Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul? Are you kidding me? There's not a bigger fight after that. But then my question is this: what does this do for either one of them? And how do you manage that next step? Because I say this all the time when you're driving down the road: never pay attention to the person directly in front of you. You have to pay attention to that one that's in front of them. And that's where these guys are trying to get. So what does that do for a Jake Paul win, lose, or draw? And what does it do to an Anthony Joshua win, lose, or draw?
Well, I want to rewind even further, because this fight would not be happening were AJ actually a better fighter rather than a shot fighter, because there is no reason why you would tune in if you thought, well, AJ's a great fighter. You know, he's a contender for a title. He's only been beaten once, let's say. He didn't, in an alternative world where he never faced Dubois and he was doing extremely well, and he went away and had great camps, and they went, oh, he's now an artist. Oh, he's a cubist painter. And now he's come back and beating people up. Now he's a poet. But you wouldn't want to watch that fight because you think Paul's going to get smacked. Well, you might want to see Paul get smacked around. But the exciting thing is, apart from people who want to see Paul get smacked around, which I not necessarily want to see, but the exciting thing is, because of where AJ is now, you think there's a chance, an outside chance, that Paul runs rings round him. AJ has a meltdown, quits in the ring, does an Oliver McCall, and that's it, done. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but
don't say it on this show then.
but that's the thing. He's so much of a he's got so much of a psychological issue,
right?
That's the excitement for me. He might just fail. That would be a disaster for AJ. For Jake Paul, it does nothing for him because the only growth is in legitimate boxing for him.
Well, then it does something, in my opinion, Steve, because what it does is it puts him in the ring with a guy that he is going to have to show off actual skills. And that's the part that I am excited about seeing for this fight, is to see, is there an actual progression of what Jake Paul has been doing? I find it hard to believe that there isn't, because he loves the sport of it. You know what I mean? He trains really hard. It's just a matter of time wasn't his friend. He should have started way earlier at something like this for the age that he's at and where he is to be better than he is right now. However, that being said, you're exactly right, because AJ is one of those guys, it's like that, be careful who you shit talk on your way up the mountain, because eventually you're coming back down and somebody's going to get, well, that's what's happening right now with AJ. AJ's seen the top of the mountain. We know that. He's been to the pinnacle. He's been to the peak. And since then, he's been on his way down. So AJ being that journeyman, being that guy is perfect. And if you've got to do it to set up that next generation of fighters, there's only so many heavyweights you can do that with. So monetarily, for the business of the sport itself, it kind of, I hate to say this because of how we feel about Jake Paul and his methods of doing this, but this is a smart move for boxing. I hate to say that because we're putting ourselves behind Jake Paul now, right? And we do want to see, I personally want to see how he has progressed, how he's gotten better, because AJ would be the biggest puzzle for him to try to figure out. He can't just go out there and try to paw with that, with that little lazy jab of his and hope to hit that big overhand. That's not going to happen. He's going to have to use footwork. He's going to have to close up. He's going to have to watch where that foot is. He's going to have to actually, show off actual boxing skills against a legitimate, not just heavyweight, huge heavyweight in comparison to Jake Paul. Huge. So I'm excited. I'd like to see it. Make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you're quite right. I think it's going to happen. I think it will happen. I think that money is so important that it's bound to happen. I think it'll happen sooner rather than later. I think that Tony Yoka's going to be furious because I don't think that's going to happen. I think this will first. But you're quite right. As we said a few weeks ago, what kind of boxer are you then, Jake? Jake? What? Jake? Are you a boxer puncher, Jake? Jake? So he's going to have to find that out pretty sodding quickly. Plus, you mentioned last time out, I think, that AJ, the place for him is not saying, I want to fight Tyson Fury, or, I want to be Usyk's last fight, or let me fight Joseph Parker. It's actually being a gatekeeper for those younger fellas Now, even if he loses to Jake Paul, that's going to add to that, which is, I'll be your proving ground then. So that fits in nicely. You're quite right, actually. I was thinking, which is unusual for me. And I think you're right that it could feed into that. Bring me your young heavyweights and let's see how they are. And even if he loses against the majority of them, he can just smile and go, well, it was better than me. Look, I'm getting older. That would be ideal for him.
I would say there's maybe two more, you know what I mean? After, if this Jake Paul thing, then there's 2 fights after there. I think that you set him up. I honestly think that you set him up with Moses. Win, lose, or draw with Moses. I think that that's a fight that solidifies Moses as a heavyweight fighter, no matter what happens. So you put him in there with AJ, and then AJ, you figure it out with AJ, and you give him his last fight. After doing those and putting a couple of young guys over in the business, win, lose, or draw, you give him his last fight and you go away for it. Now, what would be ideal is if you can, obviously you're going to be able to do this in England and you're going to sell out the O2 Arena, but would be a better deal for boxing, for a young company, or British television, would be to put this against a young boxer who happens to be working for Boxer and one Mr. Ben Shalom, because it looks like Ben Shalom got himself a new home. We said it was going to happen. We said it. We just didn't know where, but we said it was going to happen because I still see him at the other side of that table that we talked about. It's coming up. And he's got BBC. Tell me what you know about this. You're there. You're the feet on the ground. What do you know there, Ollie?
Well, the thing is, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, is still the main player in news and sport, and it's free to air. You have to buy a license. Free to air. You get loads for your money. There are lots and lots of people that unfortunately turn up on my algorithm saying defund the BBC because it's not saying what I want to say. But it's an extraordinary move. And, you kind of think when you saw the Sky Sports, I was delighted, but people were saying, pull that out of his arse, hasn't he? He's really, that's incredible. I felt the same way about this. BBC, they haven't had boxing on for many a moon. And, that's incredible, as you say, very British. And, that's, if he's pushing that and saying very British, and we have a fine British crop of not just heavyweights at the moment. Right. So actually, if I can reach out to them and say, come on, British, come on, Frank, because Frank Warren likes the Britishness too, which is great. Yep. He likes that. He's promoted that in the past. So to do all of that on the BBC, free to air, you're going to get an enormous amount of viewers on that. Mm-hmm. It's great. There's a lot of naysayers out there, curmudgeons who are saying, I hope he doesn't mess it up and all that kind of stuff. Not like that, obviously. I'm not saying it like that because you won't be able to understand them. But a lot of people are saying...
I think I've ever heard in my life.
What's that?
I said that was the most posh piker I think I've ever heard in my life.
You're quite right. But I really hope he doesn't it up. I really do. It would be terrible if he it up. But I think it's fantastic. And well done, Ben Shalom, for doing stuff that other people don't think about. No one thought BBC was in play. No one. And now, there you go.
How long is the deal for? Do you know?
It's only a year.
Just a 1-year deal. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So you know what that tells me? You either shit or get off the pot. And Ben Shalom knows this. So I'm excited for you guys over there. You guys are going to get some good fights. You guys are going to get some very exciting fights. And this also comes into play the people that he's going to be able to play with because of TKO boxing as well, right? His Excellency in Saudi Arabia right there. It's a neighbor. Whole new deal. Everything's fallen into place, Steve. The pieces are falling into place for what we've said here, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Kudos. Shout out Ben Shalom. That's amazing news because worldwide, there is not a more recognizable news source to country than the BBC. It doesn't matter where you go. You say BBC outside of a couple of other websites that are out there, but that's a different story altogether. You say that in the realm of news, and it's always England. It's always England, and it's going to be the best thing because we've all seen those shows. I used to love it when I was a kid because you turn on Benny Hill, but before it happened, you always had that the BBC logo would come on before there. So, I mean, listen, if they're going to give us great things like Benny Hill and Faulty Towers and all of the great hits, I don't know about Coronation Street. You can stick that up your ass as far as I'm concerned. But you know what I mean? Are You Being Served? Any of those, fantastic ones like that. I'm all for it. Mrs. Brown, give me some of that stuff. You know what I mean? No.
No. But I will say, are you free, Ben Whitaker? I'm free. There's lots of pictures of Ben Whitaker at the moment with Ben Shalom. There you go. Yeah. And as far as Benny Hill goes, Turkey Al Sheikh could use that with his Tom and Jerry wrestling, boxing. So he'll probably be using that in about 5 hours' time.
Well, you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. It'd be another thing. Now, before we wrap this whole thing up, Steve, I want to talk very quickly because the card has come out now. The card has come out for, I think it's November. I want to pull this up here very quickly. The next David Benavidez is fighting, right? And it looks like not just this card is good, the undercard is where all of this is at. I think that this undercard and this card in general might go down as probably the best card of the year so far. And it might be the best card of the year just because of where it's being positioned, because at the top of it, you've got Anthony Yard and David Benavidez. 27-3, Anthony Yard against David Benavidez, the monster himself, right? Is and that's going to be one hell of a fight. But let's talk about the undercard of this one, because Devin Haney got himself a fight. That's right. But be careful what you wish for, because it looks like we're finally going to get to see a guy who's deserving of this spot for holy smokes. We've been saying it for how long, Steve, that there's no way in hell that Brian Norman Jr. doesn't deserve this spot. And now he's got it. Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. on the same card. Not just that. Abdullah Mason is going to end up fighting Sam Noakes on this card. Not just that. Arthur Beterbiev is fighting on this card. Like this entire card. And not just that. Jesse Bam Rodriguez is fighting on this card against Fernando Martinez. I mean,
it's an embarrassment of riches. This is, I mean, as far as the Haney and Norman Jr. fight goes, I think this is the clowning of Devin Haney. I'm saying it now. I think this is where he's unstuck. And I think that the undercard is more exciting than the main event by a long way.
I agree completely. I think that it is going to be one of the most outstanding undercards that you can have. We've been saying it for a while now that Brian Norman Jr. is unreal. Right?
Yeah. And I do think that he's got too much for his opponent. I think he's got far too much. And I think this is when people will go, oh, you couldn't. Oh, that's it then. I think it is that. I really do. I'm saying it. I'm calling it. I think that the main event with Anthony Yard and Benavidez I think that that's probably going to be a fairly difficult night for Anthony Yard, I would say. I can't imagine that he's going to get very much back from, from the monster Benavidez. I mean, I think it's a step akin to, it's like saying it's only a step. Well, I'm at the foot of Everest, and you're asking me to do that in one leap. Well, I don't think there's much going on there. I think I mean, he needs a challenge. But there are challenges and challenges, Tidster.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Listen, Steve, before we get into some crazy stuff, I don't know what's going on here with all of this sound stuff, but we're gonna wrap this whole thing up. Always a pleasure. What are you talking about this week with music and movies?
You know, I've gone back to Aerosmith because I read a book. I'm reading a book because I'm reviewing it for the magazine about them, and so I went back to two unappreciated albums. Okay. And tonight I've done Just Press Play, which people don't like very much, but I absolutely love it for what it is. And I also watched a movie the other day called Black Bag, which is it's Michael Fassbender, it's Pierce Brosnan. It actually asks you to sodding well think. In a world where news doesn't say, what do you think anymore? It says, how do you feel? Which I dislike intensely. This one says, what do you think? There's a big plot hole here. What's happening? You make up your mind. Actually asking us to think. I was tired by the end of it.
All right. All right. Well, I haven't checked it out yet, but on your recommendation, I am going to do so. I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you want to see or listen to anything that Ice Cube is doing, go back and listen to an album. Do not watch the new War of the Worlds. This might go down as the most horrific drivel I've ever seen in such a long time. I'm not a huge fan of this, like, let's film a movie on our phones routine as it is. But this was just, it was not good. It was not good.
No, I don't think that you can come so... I don't think you can come far circle as much as he has with it was a good day. I didn't have to use my AK. Now working for the government, spying on you. That's what he's doing in this movie. Ice Cube.
Like we talk about Big Brother spying on you, and that was his role in the movie. Ice Cube, NWA, F the police and everybody else. But you know, here's all the information on the low. What are we doing here?
Extraordinary. And the whole thing, nothing happened in real time. Everything was on screens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
It's rubbish, folks. It's rubbish.
It's absolutely horrific. But you know what isn't? This show. And before we go, I just got to say it to you. Look me dead in the eyes. Jake Paul, don't sue us. We said nice things about you this week. And for all of the rest of you, please, if you're going to credit us, His Excellency, I mean, at least credit us. Because y'all know that this is the place to go when you're talking about those fights. And the one thing that you've always got to remember, Steve, they keep doing this to us. They keep stealing our bits. They keep stealing our news. They keep stealing our ideas. It doesn't matter. Because as long as I just keep doing the one thing, you know what that is, Steve? You're doing it right there. That's right, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, keep that chin down.